سيداتي سادتي، من فضلكم رحبوا معنا بالمذيع البريطاني عدنان نواز وضيوفه الكرام.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our moderator, British news anchor Adnan Nawaz and his panel.
Hello, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. These guys say they're nervous. So am I. You know, this is a very special session indeed. And it's my job to show you how these young people demonstrate the fact that the future belongs to the millennial generation. As you know, MISC Global Forum 2016 is very much tied into the Saudi Kingdom's Vision 2030 proposals. And one of the fundamental tenets of Vision 2030 is, of course, the future of technology and the digital world. I mean, these are possibly two of the biggest game changers of the entire 21st century. And these guys know about it. It's much more important to them than VHS cassettes or Walkmans were to their parents. And these guys, again, they show it. I just want to tell you a very quick story. An American TV producer, a friend of mine, was flying to Paris. He was doing an interview with Olivia de Havilland to talk about Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind won 8 Oscars in 1939. Olivia de Havilland is 100 years old. She won 2 Oscars overall. His young assistant on the plane said to him, Mark, is Gone with the Wind about the de Havilland jet airliner? I haven't seen the film. The de Havilland jet airliner was the world's first commercial jetliner. Mark was perplexed. He was like, okay, should I be impressed with my assistant's knowledge of aircraft, or should I be horrified that this young man works in Hollywood, doesn't know Gone with the Wind or anything about Olivia de Havilland? So it's a question of, as we move forward into the future, how much the present is important to us and how much the past also shapes the future. My 10-year-old daughter recently, when I said to her, I've got a really serious problem on the computer, I don't know what to do, she took the computer, within literally 60 seconds she'd fixed it. You know, and this is the same 10-year-old who a few minutes earlier said, Daddy, can you help refill the stapler? So let's see, because these guys are going to drive the future. And that's what Youth Talk 2.0 Generation 2030 is all about. Thank you very much, 5 of you. And I'm not going to tell your entire stories about why you're here, the impressive achievements that you've made already at such a young age, because through you telling these stories, hopefully you can inspire your generation in the Middle East and around the world, and you can also help us, the older people, to understand what we need to do to help you to do more. So we have Thomas, Tayo, Dina, Fatma, and Kadi, different ages, but we'll start right at the back. You're not quite the oldest, Thomas, but you're sitting in seat number 1. Okay, you're 17 years old. Let's go back to your very earliest memory of what started your career. And you call yourself a coder, right? So what started your career as a coder?
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been fascinated by computers and technology. So ever since I can remember, I can't remember any real pivotal moment that got me into technology. All my life, I've been interested. But yeah, once we got, my family purchased a Mac Mini, which is in 2005. and I was fascinated by it. I started to do videos and video filmmaking with my brothers. And then when Apple released the iPhone, and with it the iPhone software development kit a few years later, I was so interested in getting into coding and getting into app development and writing apps for the computer. So that's when I started for coding.
You know, I've been talking to these guys for the last hour or so, and one of the things that comes across quite clearly is that there was something at home that helped them pursue their interests that have eventually brought them here today. Dina, what was it at home that helped create that environment for you? And I'm going to tell you all of their achievements if they don't, because they're really incredible. I know you've got them in the programs. Let Dina answer this question, and I'll tell you what she's done. You will not believe it. So Dina, tell us about your home environment.
Well, you know, growing up, both of my parents are scientists, and my dad is a pharmaceutical professor. So, you know, dinner table conversation would often be about whatever he was doing in the lab at the time. And then more than that, I'm the youngest of, you know, 5 siblings. And growing up, I looked up to them a lot. Like when I was 5 years old, I would make up stories about how I was in calculus class, like my older sister, how I knew how to do derivatives and integrals, even though I had no idea what those words meant. So when my siblings started entering in science fair competitions, I joined right along at the age of 6, and you know, I never stopped, and here I am.
So give your kids the environment, and they will soon leave you behind. Dina's invention is a bandage or a spray, either way, that stops severe bleeding. How many times faster than anything that's currently on the market?
Well, it can stop most wounds within 10 seconds, and the current standard of care takes about 12 minutes.
It's outrageous. Thomas, what's your greatest achievement so far? Is it still to come? Because is it the 3D printer? Because I like that one.
Yeah, it could be. Hopefully.
Okay, tell people what the 3D printer is that you're working on.
So I'm currently working on a new type of 3D printer called Orb, which is designed to be up to 10 times faster than current 3D printers. And we achieve that using new methods like a spinning disk and multiple stepped heaters, as well as be modular. So that means that anyone can come in on an open platform and create what we call modules or building blocks for the 3D printer. So that allows the possibilities of the 3D printer to be expanded far beyond plastic. It could be expanded to metal or frosting or electronics maybe, or even laser scanners, things along those lines. So there's a lot of potential with a modular 3D printer, especially with an open platform that allows us to work together. And then also it's faster.
Not just faster, 10 times faster than any 3D printer that exists today. The boy's 17. I've called you a boy. Really, you're a man. You're a genius. Okay, Tayo, you are just as much of a genius as everybody else. How old are you?
11.
And how old were you when you invented your first game that became available on the App Store?
11.
And who was it who said that his games weren't nearly as good as yours when he was 11?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg thinks that Tayo is going to be big. Okay, Tayo, you're a coder. When we were sitting out there, you were telling me things, and I was saying, Tayo, I don't understand the language you're speaking in. So speak to me in plain English and tell me what it is that you do.
So I develop games for Apple, so iOS. And right now I have a game on the Apple App Store for iPhones and iPod Touches.
How do you do this? I mean, you're 11 years old, and sure, I understand that you might be interested in games and playing them, but how do you invent them? How did that happen? Was it something at home, again, that got you into this?
So ever since I was even younger than I am now, I loved playing video games on phones or iPads or any devices, and I did kind of blocks for coding, which is kind of dropping blocks onto a screen where it would it's not really typing code, but it's using the logic to build something. But it never felt as satisfying as I thought it would be to actually type up all the code and actually see a finished product. And in 4th grade, I got the chance to learn a little bit of code, and I did. And at the time, my dad was opening a tech program, and it was teaching coding classes, so I joined it, and I've been taking it for the last 2 years. And this summer, I successfully released my first app.
Okay, again, what's interesting here is that Tunde, Tayo's dad, has an academy called the Street Code Academy in California, which gives the most underprivileged classes of society in that part of California to come and learn coding, people who wouldn't be able to pay for these kind of classes. So Tayo joined that academy, and that's only given him more of the tools to do what he's doing. And if Mark Zuckerberg mentions you, the video is available on social media, I believe. You know you're doing something right. Okay, Fatima, you're going to help us translate a little bit for Kadi.
Sure.
But let's first of all talk about you. Your achievements are so huge, but the one that I like the most, only because it sounds so cool, is that you've been to the Robot Olympics. But tell us your background. Tell us what you're most proud of what you've achieved.
I think everything I've achieved now is nothing to like my ambitions to the future, but I'm happy to say that I've done something good for my age.
No, come on, that's being far too modest.
I'll say my greatest achievement is before getting any awards or something, seeing the smile on people's faces when I tell them I did this, and they would smile and say, "Oh, that would help the people. I'm very happy. We're proud of you." It's a responsibility, but I'm still happy about it. But about an achievement, I would say maybe getting like higher places globally on my inventions, getting to meet people, go to the Robot Olympics and win there. That's something like a big achievement to me.
When you look at just look at Fatima's biography in the notes for the forum, and you'll see that she's being far too modest. But you say something very, very important. There's something about the millennial generation that it's pretty obvious that they think of the world in a different way to older generations. And I think Fatima kind of, they're more concerned about the environment than we ever were. We're being forced to be concerned about it. They were concerned about it before it almost became an issue. The way they share on social media, the way they interact with each other, clearly it makes them more aware of what's happening in the rest of the world than we ever could be just by watching TV. Fatima, you said putting a smile on people's faces, people saying to you that you can help people. Is that undoubtedly one of your main aims? Because I presume if you're successful at that, you'll also be able to make some money.
I'll tell you, being in the science field, and especially, I'd say it's kind of complicated for people in like our age. Maybe Tayo's good at coding, but I don't enjoy it. But I'll have to go through it. So it's a long process. You have to do studies and do stuff. So after every invention, I'm like, forget Fatma the inventor. I don't want to do it anymore. And then when I get to like represent my invention anywhere and people look at it and tell me what they think about it, I'm like, I have to do another one, maybe one more. Yeah. And one by one leads to another. So I think it's one of my aims in a long list of aims after every invention.
Okay, so then we're going to finish introducing who these guys are and what they've achieved, and then we'll get into a bit more detail about what their futures will be and how that might help the rest of the world. Kadi, you're my favorite person on this panel, okay, because you're like my 10-year-old daughter. Tell us about your invention.
اختراعي هو قلم في رأسه أشعة ضوئية وبه شاشة رقمية تظهر النتائج المبدئية بأنه يوجد كسر أم لا.
And Fatima's just going to quickly translate so that we can all understand what Kadi has said.
So it's an invention that looks like a pencil, and it has a screen where you can detect broken bones without using X-rays.
And my 10-year-old, if you're watching, Freya, stop playing Super Mario, okay? Who is going to use this, Kadi?
الأطباء الذين يتجولون في بيوت الفقراء.
So it's for doctors who tour around houses for poor people. So it's not aimed for hospitals. It's aimed to like the lower people, the lower class people.
Okay. Again, helping people. Guys, feel free to answer this as you wish. How does this fit in with your lives amongst your age group? Okay, because usually in your age group, kids are hanging out, you know, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're playing sport, or, you know, they're on their iPads playing games. You know, they've got, Tayo, you play a lot of basketball, but how much of your time is spent doing this? Because I'm guessing that you can't be so successful as you are now without dedicating almost your entire time to what you're doing. Do you have a balanced life in doing what you're doing? Thomas.
Yes, I think balance is extremely important, especially when we're young and we have a huge social life, of course, and it definitely drains you. I mean, it doesn't drain you. It takes a lot of effort. So you're working every day towards something for hours that you really. I mean, it's fun. It's definitely a lot of fun. For me, it was programming originally, and then now programming and 3D printing. But it's really important to have a balance, as you said, to hang out with friends. For me, it's going out biking, going out running with my friends, playing guitar, playing in a rock band. So it's those kind of things that you can still socialize and you can still hang out with friends. It's so important. So.
Tayo, you did like a crash course in coding over the summer, didn't you? You know, was it at the Street Code Academy? You did like 200 hours in a few months.
Yes.
So what were you doing with the rest of the time, or did you have no other time?
So for the summer, I joined the Street Code Accelerator, where I spent 6 hours a day, and usually more because I'd stay after, to work on my project. And I didn't spend a lot of time outside of that doing much, just because when I get into like coding, it's hard for me to stop. So I'll get into it and just keep on going, and then be sad that we have to leave or do something else. And it's just really engaging and fun to me to solve the problems that come up, and there were a lot of them, and fix those.
That's interesting. And Thomas, I'm going to say something after you say something. You want to talk?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with Tayo. It's a very rewarding thing to go after a problem, especially when you're bug hunting in code, and you're trying to find this problem. You can sometimes spend hours at the computer just because it's so fun, and sometimes it's very, very challenging. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. You forget to take breaks. Sometimes you forget to get water and food and things like that. But it's definitely a lot of fun.
That's exactly something that comes across when you speak to all five of these guys, is that it's very much their passion. If it's not their passion, they wouldn't dedicate themselves to it so fully. So you can't create a passion, but you can create the environment that fires the passion that they themselves will find. They'll all find their own, whatever it is. Tayo, if you grow up to be really, really tall, you could be like Dikembe Mutombo. I know you like basketball, you know? You could do coding and basketball. Okay, let's talk about something that Dina, that you and I talked about behind the stage here, was that you've got this incredible product that you can imagine paramedics and ER, accident and emergency departments, would all want to use. The spray, the bandage that stops the severe bleeding extremely quickly. When is that going to come onto the market? And what's the process that you, as a young person, are having to learn? Because all of your inventions will hopefully, fingers crossed, eventually be used by real people. And some already are, like your games that you guys have invented Thomas and Tayo. So Dina, first of all, what are you learning and what are you having to learn to bring this stuff for the use of real people, by real people?
Well, I think something that's, been really important to me and really part of the last few years is that when I started looking into this, when I started doing the research, and I looked at my data and I realized that I had something that was real, that, that I was confident that really worked better than what we had now. I wanted it to be, on the market immediately. I wanted it to be out there helping the people who needed it the most. But I realized that, for better, in most cases, there are these regulatory processes that you have to go to. And so that was a realization for me that was at first, frustrating because I wanted to be helping people who needed my product. But now it's been really gratifying to work through the process and hopefully, bring it to market in the coming years.
Okay, well, Tayo and Thomas, already you've had the experience of getting those games onto the app stores. The 3D printer is developing really well. I mean, what about you, Fatima? Of all your inventions, is there anything in particular that you think could soon be used by people in the real world?
I'd love to see my inventions at the markets. It's like a dream come true to anyone who makes inventions. Be like, I wish people could actually use it and get access to it anywhere and buy it all around the world. But being in a young age, it's hard to get your inventions patented around. About marketing, I don't have that background. But I'd love to see my inventions sometime soon in the market. And it all comes from the support of the community and the companies, because I don't think I can do anything alone. And I'm seeing the support from them. But I don't think I can own my own factory anytime soon, until like a couple of years. So maybe in a couple of years I'll have my own brand and company. We don't know.
Kadi, do people talk to you about your invention being used in a hospital or anything like that?
نعم يسألونني عن هذا الاختراع أني سأقدمه ومتى سأعرضه.
They always ask her about it, and when is she going to present it, and when are they going to use it?
Do your parents help you? Do they tell you when it might happen?
نعم ساعداني لكن لا أدري متى سيتاح.
They help her, but she don't know when her invention will be used.
Okay. I'm also interested to know how much your teachers at school help you, because you clearly have something very special. Are they able to help you, or is most of your help coming from home?
لا، مساعدة أتت من المنزل ومن المدرسة. من المدرسة معلمة العلوم الأستاذة مها المرشد ساعدتني على اكتشاف موهبتي وتطويرها، ورشحتني لبرنامج موهبة، والآن أنا مرشحة لأولمبياد الرياضيات والعلوم.
I didn't get to hear the last part, but she said both gave her support, and especially her science teacher.
Great, excellent. When all of you were thinking of, let's concentrate on one particular thing, your greatest invention. Thomas, you can talk about anything, but I just like that 3D printer. Did you look at the market and did you think, okay, there's a gap there, and so therefore I'm going to concentrate on this particular thing? Because some of these things are completely unique. Can I start with you, Dina, on this?
Sure. So I remember shadowing my cousin, who is a surgeon, and I just remember how frustrated he was that, oftentimes patients that would come in, they would pass away not from the complication with which they needed to be treated, but, of uncontrolled bleeding on the surgical table. And I remember looking into the way in which the current, standard of care works and just being frustrated that, clearly it wasn't good enough to meet the need. And so out of that frustration, that's where, a lot of my interest in the field came. And that's when I decided to work on this.
Anyone else? Tayo, the game, when you came up, what was it called, Spike Rush? Mm-hmm. Did you think, okay, I need a game? I'm sorry, I don't know what Spike Rush does. I like video games, but I'll download it later, okay? If it's available for the format that I've got on my phone. When you made Spike Rush, was your thought that I need a game that specifically does this, so I'm going to invent it?
At that point, I was just trying to come up with a game idea. It was just kind of another project to me to try and make, and I hadn't released an app onto the App Store before, so it was really just a chance to do something I hadn't done before. And I was just brainstorming, and I came up with the initial idea to have something where you have a character that's jumping over something, and my initial thought was just a triangle, like a spike. And then I was thinking of ways to make it better and more interesting, so I thought of like gravity switches. Then I thought of like power-ups and different levels. And ideas like this kept on being suggested and just came to me as I was working through it. So if something happened that wasn't supposed to in the game, that might trigger an idea that I would eventually implement into it.
Okay, Thomas, say something, or I'll ask you a different question. It's up to you.
Yeah, so Orb was really born out, so the Orb 3D printer was really born out of, like Dina said, frustration. Frustration that something wasn't there. I didn't really see, it wasn't so much looking at it from a business perspective and looking at like a gap in the market. It was really about 3D printers were very, very slow. I mean, are very, very slow. They take multiple hours to create one print, whereas a 2D printer, that prints paper, takes a few seconds. And that was really apparent and frustrating, especially when I had a 3D printer club at my school, my middle school, and everyone was getting frustrated that they couldn't print their objects in time in a class period. You could only print 1 or 2 objects. So it became something that I really wanted to improve on.
Thomas, your dad was telling me that you've learned more or just as much from your failures as your successes. And so tell us more about that, because all the great inventors have always said that when you fail, it tests you in a way that success doesn't, and you become better.
Yes, it's very true. I look at failure as just success in a different context. So when I fail, when something doesn't go right, and sometimes it goes so wrong, you've put in so much work. For example, I had, there are so many examples, but I'll just give one. One time I was soldering up some PCBs, some printed circuit boards. I had, I was attaching wires and trying to solder different solder joints together. And what ended up happening was the first time I powered it on, and I was expecting this board to work that I had designed. I was expecting it to turn on and work. It turned out that I had actually had a little tiny wisp of solder, wisp of metal that was jumping from 12 volts to 5 volts. And 12 volts killed the entire board. So before I could even see it working at all, the board was fried. It was done. So yeah, that was very frustrating because I spent hours on it. But then I actually ordered a circuit board to specification that I had designed that alleviated that issue. So it was a very interesting learning experience, but yeah, it was frustrating at the same time. But failure is just success in a different context.
I like that phrase a lot, that failure is just success in a different context. Anybody else care to talk about failure? Otherwise, I want to learn a bit about who you are as people and about the way you see the world, because the way you, the millennials, see the world is going to make a difference to, of course, how you interact with it, okay? Fatima, what concerns you most about the world we live in today? What are the things that you look at and think, I'm not happy about that, I'd like something to be a bit different here?
The world around me now, I sleep in a safe country, in my bed, with my parents around me, and I worry, will I tomorrow wake up in the same place? Will I still have the things I have today? And then the idea of people not living the same life I'm living now and not blessed with the things I have now comes up to me, and I always think about something that I could serve them with. Could I do something to help them? But it's hard, you know. We try to do everything. But again, we see small problems, and we were blessed with something different than the people around us. Why don't we use it to serve people? So I'm like, maybe I'm good at this. I could fix that problem, or maybe I could help someone and we could fix it together. So if I can do it, why don't I do it? Just like do it.
Well, you're special because you do it.
Thank you.
But I'm hoping that people your age are going to be watching us. You know, we're going to be on YouTube for eternity, and that they're going to think wherever they are in the world that if these guys can do it, then I can do it as well. I mean, that's one of the most important reasons that you're on stage. Anybody else? Do you look at the rest of the world? Do you think what's happening on the other side of the planet is as important to you, or are you worried more about what's happening in your own community, in your neighborhood, with your friends, or in your house? Anybody? Tayo?
So I think to most people, the problems that happen around them are more apparent and seem more relevant just because they probably affect them. But the problems around the world are definitely also important, just that a lot of people aren't given the chance to see them and aren't given the chance to learn how to fix them. And so, like, I live in the Bay Area, and there's, like, a lot of homelessness, a lot of pollution, and this is all stuff that's happening, that's trying to be fixed, but, and it happens all over the world, but it might not seem as important to somebody who lives in a very clean neighborhood, or there isn't as much homelessness, but it's still very important.
Thank you, Tayo. Kadi, what do you think your parents and the people like your parents of that age can do to help you more? Is there anything we can do to help you more?
أتمنى من الكبار الاستماع لنا والإيمان بقدراتنا وأن ما نفعله ليس للتسلية، وأتمنى من الكبار مساعدة الأطفال على اكتشاف موهبتهم دائما أفكر بأن علاج مرض السرطان في عقل طفل لم تتح له فرصة اكتشاف موهبته وتطويرها، والعالم لا يزال بانتظار هذا الاكتشاف.
Can you help us, Fatima?
Sure. She said she wants people, the older people, to listen to her and believe in her and believe in all of the children. And she said the way kids think is very different because maybe one of the kids has the medicine to cancer and no one listened to him.
Yes, very good. Anybody else? How can the older generations help you? Okay, so let's move on and see who inspires you. So you can invite 2 famous people to dinner, okay, to a party if you don't know how to cook. Thomas, who do you invite?
I don't know about the second one yet, but the first person I would invite is Elon Musk.
Ah, very good.
He's the entrepreneur I respect the most. He's open, he's humble, he's honest, and he works super hard to fulfill important missions. He puts himself on the line. So,
of course, Elon Musk is the owner of Tesla. And for me, the favorite thing about Elon Musk is that he's wanting to send missions to Mars. At the moment, it's a one-way mission, you know. And he said, oh, I don't mind dying on Mars as long as it's not on impact, you know. Let's land first, and I'll live there for the rest of my living days, and I won't come back. I like Musk, too. Tayo, 2 people.
I don't know a lot of coders, but I am a basketball player, and I live in the Bay Area, and we have Steph Curry there.
Very good, yeah, yeah. One more.
I don't know.
Does Steph Curry inspire you just daily because of what he does on the basketball court? Clearly, you're not going to go out there and dunk the ball, but you think if he's that brilliant, I want to be brilliant in what I do as well.
Mm-hmm. He inspires me. In fact, I have a poster, and it says, I can do all things, and it was a gift from my uncle for my birthday, and he knows I love Steph Curry, and as do a lot of people in the Bay Area. And I think that was really, he's a really big inspiration because he's humble, but he like dominates on the court.
Yep, quite right. Dina?
Well,
Both of these guys have only come up with one person. Give me two
right.
people.
Well, you know, I'm a big believer in mentorship, and I'm a really big believer in, you know, looking up to people and being able to see what they do. So a lot of people come to mind to me, but I think, you know, there's one person that really stands out among them, and that's Dr. Martin Rothblatt. And Dr. Rothblatt is, you know, she's a telecommunications, she's a very successful, you know, inventor of telecommunications devices. So like if you've ever used GPS, for example, you've probably used, you know, some technologies that she's been really instrumental in creating. But, you know, what changed was when her daughter was diagnosed with pulmonary arterial hypertension, and the doctors told her that, you know, the disease was unfortunately fatal and unfortunately had no cure. She sat in the hospital room next to her daughter day and night reading scientific papers, and, you know, she quit her job in telecommunications, and from that point forward worked to find a cure for pulmonary arterial hypertension, and in the end she was successful. She was able to not only find the cure, but also to treat her daughter before her daughter was affected by the disease, which, you know, the drive and the passion and the commitment to a field that wasn't her own was just something that's really incredible to me.
Okay. So if you have any questions, we've probably got about 5 minutes left. So we've got the roving microphones, as you know, and you can ask some questions to these five. Okay, Fatima, two people that you admire, that you look up to, that if you could invite them, they definitely say, yes, I'm definitely coming to your house as long as your mother's cooking.
I have a long list, but
No.
I have two people
Yes,
that
two.
I always meet, and I'd love to have dinner with them, and maybe breakfast the next
Yes.
day. We don't know. First, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. He's one of the greatest people I've ever looked up to. The way he thinks, the way he sees challenges, and how is the UAE today and how is Dubai. And the second person is Her Excellency Shamal Mazrou'i, the Minister of Youth, who spoke a few hours ago. She's very inspiring, and seeing a person age 22 getting to do all of this at this age, and
Okay.
a Minister of Youth, I can't say anything.
Yes. Okay, very good. Kadi, two people, they can be anybody from anywhere in the world that they will come to your house if you ask them to.
No.
Nobody?
No.
Okay, okay. If you ask me, I'll come, okay? Okay, so questions, anybody? Number one over here.
Hello, my name is Ragat Talib. I'm a computer science student. I have a question for Teo. Do you recommend for new app developers or any person who's trying to advance their skills with programming to use open source code or to just rely on their logic?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's helpful to have open source code, and you should definitely take advantage of that. Like, I know I search Google a lot, and I get a lot of code from other places, and once you've finished your project, I don't have like any open source accounts or anything, but it's helpful to post your code on that so that other people can do the same. So yeah, I do advise it.
Thomas, you got something on this?
Yes. Open source, I mean, we're all based on open source. So if you look at even your Macintosh or your Android phone, or the internet itself is all based on open source technology. But one thing, so it's very important for us to give back to that open source community that gave us so much, but it's also important to keep some things proprietary. So yes, absolutely build on open source. It's there, and it's designed to help, but it's important from a business perspective also to to sustain yourself. So you have to sustain yourself. So what I like to do is have some things that are open source and also some things that are proprietary, just to make sure that we're still giving back some frameworks to the community.
Okay, we only have 1 minute left, unfortunately, and the whole program today is running over, so I'm going to have to go over here. Sorry. Okay, over there.
Hi, my name is Jissa. I'm from Indonesia, and I work with deaf children in Indonesia, and you guys are amazing. My question would be, if you guys have one superpower to help you achieve your goal, what would that be? Thank you.
Okay, very briefly, all of you, in as few words as you can, if you had a superpower to help achieve your goal, what would it be?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Tayo.
I'd have unlimited patience.
Unlimited patience, excellent, yeah. Dina?
I would probably have to say, empathy, or the ability to know where the greatest need is.
Yes, very good. Oh, very good. Okay. Fatma?
I'd love to travel in time, see the future and come back.
Yes. No superpower? Yeah. Okay. Okay, 5 seconds to go. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I haven't told you even a quarter of what these guys have achieved. They're all available, I'm sure, on social media. You can speak to them here. Their parents are also here. Together, they amount to a kind of a Marvel group of superheroes anyway. But they're flesh and blood. We haven't got time. I'm really sorry. We've run over. So we have Thomas, Tayo, Dina, Fatima, and Kadi. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.